Duchess Isabella de Leon stood before her council, her steely gaze sweeping across the hall. "My lords," she said coolly, lips curving into a faint, sardonic smile, "if you have time to bicker, you'd do better to study your history. Queen Matilda led her armies and saved the realm. Learn from her." She wore the austere black and silver uniform of the Leon Duchy's sovereign. Though slender and fine-boned, there was nothing delicate about her manner. Isabella had lived 18 years masquerading as a man. From the moment of her birth, her father had decreed she would be raised as the heir the duchy needed. Her arrival in the world had even killed an old enemy duke from the rival Alvaria Principality, who was so enraged at the news he died of apoplexy on the spot. Duke Lionel de Leon, well past his prime, finally had a child with his duchess after years of praying for an heir. But during the difficult birth, his wife died. Desperate to rally his people and show strength to their neighbors, the Duke ordered the entire city to sound war drums, claiming it would help the labor go smoothly. The echoing drums thundered across the land and reached the ears of the paranoid Duke of Alvaria. Convinced Leon was launching a surprise invasion, he mustered his knights and kept watch from his castle walls all night. When dawn broke with no enemy in sight, he realized he'd been tricked. He raged so fiercely at being humiliated that he fell dead from stroke, cursing Leon as a realm of cunning vipers and commanding his son to take revenge. Meanwhile, Duke Lionel wept over his wife's corpse and his newborn daughter. He vowed she would inherit his title, no matter her sex. So Lady Isabella de Leon was presented to the world as Lord Isaac de Leon, future Duke of Leon. Isabella's mother went into labor late one autumn night. The old Duke Lionel paced the corridors, knowing the birth was difficult, the midwives whispering of complications. To rally his people's spirits, and perhaps to distract himself from dread, he commanded that the city's war drums sound all night, a deafening chorus that rattled windows and echoed through the valleys. Across the border in Alvaria, the old Duke Berengar heard the drums and leapt to the worst conclusion. "They dare to launch a surprise attack under cover of darkness," he roared to his sons. He manned his walls with knights standing in full armor until dawn, waiting for an enemy that never came. When the sun rose and Leon's banners were nowhere in sight, he realized he had been fooled. He flew into such a fury at the humiliation that his heart gave out on the spot, dying with a curse on Leon on his lips. His last words to his heir, "They are vipers, swear to avenge me." Meanwhile, back in Leon, tragedy struck as well. Duchess Eleanor perished giving birth. Duke Lionel was left with only a crying infant, female when the duchy required a male heir to deter rivals. But Lionel refused to show weakness. He wrapped the infant in the blue and silver cloak of the ducal house and announced to the court, "My son and heir, Isaac de Leon." From that moment on, Isabella lived as Isaac. When Lionel died, she inherited the title unchallenged, at least publicly. Though the young Duke Isaac de Leon ruled with kindness and unexpected wisdom, there was one matter that truly terrified him. He had inherited a fractured duchy after his father's death, its nobles jostling for influence, and its knights wary of the young, untested heir. But he proved himself capable, firm in counsel, generous to the poor, shrewd in diplomacy. Yet even the bravest leader had private fears. His greatest dread was not war, but Lady Giselle. Giselle was the younger sister of Sir Roland, commander of Leon's knightly order. To cement Roland's loyalty, the late Duke Lionel had arranged a betrothal between Isaac and Giselle. No one knew the truth, that the dashing young Duke was a woman in disguise. Giselle was beautiful, clever, and dangerously determined. She'd spent months attempting to consummate their union, convinced her betrothed was simply shy. Isaac, Isabella, had dodged her for as long as she could, feigning long military inspections, claiming illness, even locking himself in his study. But this time there was no escape. The court expected them to finally share chambers. In his private study, Isabella raked a hand through her hair and muttered darkly, "If I can't avoid her, I'll have to be wounded." And so she devised a scheme, a staged assassination attempt during the upcoming hunt. She would arrange for a trusted retainer to act the part of an assassin, lightly injure her, and thus gain the perfect excuse to delay any marital obligations. "She can hardly warm my bed if I'm bedridden," Isabella reasoned grimly. The plan was perfect, or so she believed. The hunt began at dawn. Isabella rode at the head of her retinue, dressed in sleek hunting leathers, a feathered hat pulled low over her brow. Though she cracked jokes and kept the mood light, her thoughts were grim. If all goes well, my hired assassin will strike, draw a little blood, and buy me another month of freedom from Giselle. But fate rarely obeyed plans. As they neared the dense forest, Isabella signaled her men to fan out. She urged her horse deeper into the woods alone, hoping to reach the planned ambush spot. Instead, she heard the sharp whistle of an arrow cutting the air. Real, not staged. Her mount reared and bolted, skidding on wet leaves. She tried to wrestle the reins, but the animal lost footing and crashed toward a ravine. In that final moment, she thought, so, this is it, only to be tackled off the saddle by a blur of white. They both rolled to the ground. Dazed, Isabella blinked up into the face of a young man in travel-stained white garb. He was infuriatingly handsome, with dark hair falling over piercing gray eyes. He was also staring at her in baffled horror. "God's blood," he muttered. Are you mad? Were you trying to die?" Isabella glared. "You idiot, stab me already. Make it convincing." His brows shot up. "What? Are you insane? I don't bed men, much less stab them for sport." Before either could explain, more arrows flew. A shadow detached from the trees, a real assassin, dagger gleaming. The stranger cursed and drew his own blade. Steel clashed in the gloom as Isabella scrambled back. Wait, there are two assassins, she realized. One I hired, one who definitely isn't. While they fought, she yelled, exasperated, "Enough! I'll pay you both! Just make it look good and shove me off the cliff already." Neither listened. The duel grew vicious. Blood spattered the moss. Then, with a final shove, the combatants careened too close to the edge. The stranger seized Isabella's arm to steady her, but the earth crumbled beneath them. They plunged.
When Isabella next woke, her world was haze and firelight. Her head throbbed so badly she nearly vomited. She tried to sit up, but firm hands pushed her back onto a straw pallet. A voice spoke in a clipped, commanding accent. "Easy. You fell from the cliffs outside my lands. You're lucky to be alive." Her vision cleared enough to see a tall man in fine black and crimson doublet, embroidered with the rampant lion of Alveria. His eyes were ice blue, watching her with calculation. "Who are you?" she rasped. The man smiled thinly. "You don't remember? Good. That will make this easier." She had no answer. The pain in her skull swallowed all thought. Duke Lucian of Alveria had found her half dead at the foot of the cliffs. Recognizing a chance to humiliate his enemy, he had her nursed back to health, then pressed her into service in his household under a false name. To the world, she was now Clara, a lowly maid in Alveria's grand ducal palace. She spent her days scrubbing floors and her nights bowing to nobles who spat commands. Lucian's steward took special pleasure in assigning her to personal service for the Duke himself. If she'd remembered who she truly was, she'd have killed them all. But Isabella, Isaac, remembered nothing. Only a sense of restless, infuriated pride stirred in her breast when the Duke ordered her to fetch wine or polish boots. Life in Alveria's ducal palace was unkind to servants. Clara, once Isabella, now stripped of name and title, spent her days mopping polished marble floors and tending smoky hearths. The grand halls glittered with tapestries and gilt-framed portraits of Lucien's ancestors, all watching her with stony contempt. The ducal steward delighted in ordering her to serve Duke Lucien personally. He made her pour wine at dinners, hold his cloak as he dressed, even polish his riding boots. Lucien, for his part, rarely spoke to her. When he did, his tone was glacially polite. But behind his pale eyes, she sensed calculation. One night, 3 men crept into Lucien's private study. They were woefully incompetent. One tripped over a candelabrum and nearly set the tapestries ablaze. Another dropped his dagger with a loud clang. Lucien's guards caught them easily. When questioned, they stammered that they were there to inspect the Duke's water supply. A lie so absurd even the guards snorted. The would-be assassins were thrown into the servant quarters under guard. The next morning, Clara was ordered to bring them food. When she entered the dim cellars, they fell silent. Then, the oldest one squinted at her. "Elena?" She blinked. "What?" The men exchanged panicked glances. Clearly they hadn't expected to see her. The youngest blurted, "Sister! Thank God you're alive!" "I'm... your sister?" she asked, slowly. They nodded so hard their necks cracked. "Aye, don't you remember us? It's me, your eldest brother Jeffrey, and these are Walter and Tom. We thought you died years ago when bandits attacked." She frowned, head pounding. Her memory was a black well. "We're here to kill the Duke," Walter added helpfully. "For revenge." "Revenge?" Jeffrey shot him a glare. "Quiet! She doesn't remember that part yet." But Clara's eyes narrowed. "Tell me everything." Faced with her steady glare, the three men crumbled. They spun an elaborate tale of how Duke Lucien had butchered their family and how they'd spent years planning this assassination. By the end of it, she felt a strange righteous fury stirring. "Fine," she said coldly. "If you're truly my brothers, then we'll finish what you started, but do it my way." Meanwhile, Lucien had noticed the new maid's restless spirit. One evening, he found her scrubbing the ballroom alone. He paused at the doorway, watching her silently, noting the stiff line of her back, the set of her jaw. "Clara!" she startled, rising too quickly, spilling the bucket. "My lord," she bit out, voice low. He studied her. "You're different from the others." She wiped her hands on her apron. "If you mean I don't flatter you, forgive me. I'm a poor liar." His mouth quirked, almost amused. "You're an intriguing liar. You just don't know it yet." She scowled. "If you're so dissatisfied, send me away." Lucien's eyes glittered. "No, I think you'll stay. I want to see what you're really capable of." Her hands clenched. She forced herself to bow, biting back every insult she wanted to spit. But in her heart, something cold and sharp began to form. A plan. Clara soon learned Alvaria's ducal household had cruel punishments for insolence. After sassing Lucien once too often, he had barely blinked at her curses, merely quirked an eyebrow and issued orders. She was stripped of her usual duties and sent to the lower scullery. There she was put to work scrubbing latrines, scouring chamber pots, and emptying refuse into the moat. The steward seemed to relish it. "See how you like the scent of your own pride," he sneered as she gagged over the stench. But even in the stink and darkness, trouble found her. The three so-called brothers had been sentenced to menial work as well to avoid execution for their bungled assassination. When they first saw her in the scullery, they paled. Jeffrey stammered, "Sister, you're here too?" Clara squinted. "Do I know you?" They scrambled to maintain their ruse. "Aye," Walter said too quickly. "We're your family, remember? Bandits separated us. You lost your memory in the woods, but you're our Elena." She frowned. Something about their wide, terrified eyes struck her as suspicious. "I don't recall anything," she said flatly. "And I don't trust you." The three exchanged panicked glances. Finally, Jeffrey leaned in conspiratorially. "She's on to us. We'll have to convince her." That night, as she slept on a pile of burlap sacks, she felt a strange sweetness in the air. Her eyelids grew heavy. She realized too late they'd dosed her with poppy fumes. In a feverish half-dream, she heard them whispering by her ear. "Elena, think of home. Think of the fire-lit hearth. Mother's singing." Images flickered in her mind. Vague, warm, impossibly real. She saw three brothers smiling at her around a table, felt laughter in her throat. When she woke in the chill dawn, her head hurt, but her heart felt Wrong. Jeffrey crouched beside her, eyes red. You remember, don't you? Clara blinked. Her mouth worked. Finally, she croaked, My brothers. The three let out shaky cheers of relief, hugging her. God above, she thought foggily. What have I agreed to? Once she accepted them as family, they began conspiring in earnest. Their goal hadn't changed. Kill Duke Lucien. But they were so spectacularly bad at it, she nearly tore her hair out. Walter tried to slip poison in Lucien's wine, only to spike the wrong decanter. The steward nearly died instead. Jeffrey tried to stab Lucien in the corridor, but the Duke sidestepped calmly and had him dragged off for flogging before releasing him as a joke. Clara, Elena, as they insisted, finally lost patience. You three are gonna get us all hanged, she snarled. If we're doing this, we do it my way. They saluted at once, calling her little sister, like loyal foot soldiers. She sighed. Fine. Listen closely. Here's the new plan. Life in the ducal palace soon descended into farce. Jeffrey, Walter, and Tom took their roles as brothers far too seriously. They'd loudly address her as sister in front of other servants, drawing suspicious looks. They even tried rehearsing a family history at night by candlelight. Say mother's name was Agnes. No, it was Beatrice yesterday. Damn it, keep it straight. Clara watched them argue, arms folded, expression sour. You realize Lucien's spy master is going to kill us for this idiocy? Not if you play along, Jeffrey wheedled. Please, you're our best chance. She pinched the bridge of her nose. I can't believe I'm helping you morons plan Reggie's side. When they next tried to poison Lucien, they were so obvious the steward sniffed the wine and declared it suspiciously minty. Beaten and humiliated, the trio crawled back to the scullery. We need another plan, Walter mumbled, lips split. Clara sighed. Another plan? Or any plan that actually works? They looked at her with shining, desperate hope. She scowled. Fine, I'll think of something. But if you ever call me little sister again in public, I will kill you myself. Their next idea was even worse. Infiltrate Lucien's private wing, dressed as traveling minstrels. They practiced performances in the cellar at night. Walter's singing made dogs howl. Clara finally snapped. Enough! You're going to get us all executed for treason and bad theater. Things came to a head one night when masked assassins, real ones, slipped into the servants' dormitory. Blades gleamed in the firelight. Walter squeaked, Ah! Good evening, sir. Looking for anyone in particular? The killers advanced without a word. Jeffrey tried a martial pose. Stay back! We know, the manticore claw technique. Clara rolled her eyes so hard it hurt. God above, you idiots! The assassins raised their daggers. Time to act! Clara surged forward, grabbed a brazier with her bare hands, and flung burning coals across the floor. Flames and smoke erupted, startling the attackers. Run! She bellowed, dragging the would-be brothers behind her. They barely escaped into the moonlit courtyard, lungs heaving. That's it, Clara snapped. We're done. We're going to die here if we keep this up. The three men dropped to their knees, sobbing. Sorry, sister. We just wanted to avenge our family. We're useless. Something in her chest twisted. She hated them for dragging her into this. But she also saw the raw, pathetic grief on their faces. She exhaled slowly. Listen, she growled. We do this my way. From now on, I give the orders. Understand? Yes, sister, they chorused, saluting with tears running down their cheeks. She rubbed her temples. God save me from idiots. The next day, Clara found herself summoned before Duke Lucien himself. She was still scraped and soot-streaked from the fire. He sat at the head of the great chamber, long fingers drumming on the armrest. Clara, he said softly. She bowed stiffly. "My lord, your friends caused quite the commotion last night." She didn't reply. Lucienne leaned forward, ice-blue eyes narrowing. "Tell me, why did you really help them?" Clara lifted her chin. "Because you're a tyrant." A smile flickered at his lips. "Honesty! How rare!" She spat on the floor. "Execute me if you want. I'd rather die on my feet than crawl for you." Lucien rose from his chair. He walked toward her, boots clicking on marble. He stopped so close she could see every tiny thread in his embroidered doublet. He bent slightly, murmuring near her ear. "No, Clara. I won't execute you." She stiffened. He straightened and smiled coldly. "You're far too interesting alive." The tension in the ducal palace crackled like a summer storm. After their botched assassination attempt, Clara's brothers tried to lay low. They whispered in corners, avoided the steward's eye, and jumped at every shadow. But news of an attempted plot had spread. Servants traded rumors in hushed tones that the Duke's new maid had led killers right into his study. Lucien's patience thinned. He sent for Clara again. This time she was marched into the audience hall in chains. He sat on the carved throne-like chair at the head of the room, drumming his fingers. His knights lined the walls. Clara didn't flinch. She lifted her chin despite the bruises. Lucien's gaze was like ice on her skin. "Your friends failed again," he said calmly, "and you protected them. Why?" She spat blood at the floor. "Because you're a bastard who murders peasants for taxes." Gasps rippled. Lucien rose slowly. He descended the steps until they were face to face. He didn't hit her. He didn't even raise his voice. "You hate me so much," he murmured, "yet you stay. Why?" Her lip trembled before she could stop it. "I don't remember anything else." Silence. His expression flickered. For a single breath, he almost looked human. Then it hardened. "You will work in the kennels," he said coldly. "Let's see how defiant you are covered in dog filth." The kennels were worse than the scullery. She spent her days shoveling manure, her nights shaking with fever from bites and scratches. Her brothers were assigned to the stables to keep them separate. But they still snuck her food, watching her with guilty eyes. One night, exhausted, she dreamed of fire. She saw a grand hall in flames. Knights in silver and blue livery lay dead. A man in a black surcoat raised a bloodied sword and sneered. "Alveria will burn!" She woke screaming. The stable boys ran to see. She pushed them away, clutching her head. Bits of memory surfaced, the crest of a rampant lion, a woman weeping in childbed, her father's voice saying, "You are Isaac now." She gasped. "Isaac! Isabella! Leon!" She didn't tell the brothers what she remembered, but when they huddled around her later, begging her to help plan one last attempt on Lucien's life, she agreed. Except this time, she planned it with precision. No poison, no bumbling corridor attacks. We do this smart. On the hunt, Geoffrey saluted. "As you say, sister." She forced a smile. "Good. Listen carefully." Meanwhile, Lucienne noticed the change in her. She met his gaze when serving wine. She didn't flinch at his questions. She even debated him in front of the council once, correcting his tax plan with icy logic. He didn't punish her. Instead, he watched her with unsettling interest. One evening, they found themselves alone in the library. Lucien leaned back in his chair, swirling wine. "Tell me something, Clara. If you had power over me, what would you do?" She didn't hesitate. "Cut your throat while you slept." He chuckled darkly. "Honest. I appreciate that." She slammed the decanter down. "Stop toying with me." He rose, their eyes locked. For a long, breathless moment, neither spoke. Then he murmured, "I can't," and he left. The political climate in Alveria darkened. Whispers of war with Leon spread through the great halls. Trade caravans halted at the border. Messengers rode day and night. Lucian summoned his council daily to discuss strategy. And, more often than not, Clara stood silently at the wall, forced to serve wine and pore over maps she once might have commanded. One afternoon, as the lords bickered about tariffs and levies, she cleared her throat. The chamber went silent. She pointed at the trade routes. "If you raise tariffs here, Leon will simply use the southern pass. You'll lose all leverage." The steward blanched. "How would you know that?" Lucienne just watched her, eyes narrowed. She realized too late she'd spoken like a duke, like Isaac. After the meeting, Lucienne found her in the corridor. "Impressive," she scowled. "Shove your compliments." He didn't move. "You're not who you say you are." She swallowed. "I'm a maid." He shook his head slowly. "No. You're a strategist, a commander. Tell me your real name." Her breath hitched. Isaac, Isabella, Leon. But she said nothing. Lucian's voice was cold. "Very well, stay silent. But know this. I will find out." Meanwhile, diplomats from the Northern Empire arrived. The Empire threatened to ally with Leon if Alveria refused a marriage pact. Lucian's answer was to propose marrying the Emperor's niece himself, purely to buy time. Clara watched this Game of Thrones unfold from the sidelines, teeth gritted. One evening, she cornered Lucian in his study. "You're a fool," she hissed. "You think marrying her will stop war? You're handing your throat to the Empire." Lucian slammed his goblet down. "What would you have me do? Watch Alveria burn?" She crossed her arms. "Fight smarter." He stepped close. "Then tell me how." She met his gaze, shaking with fury. "You wouldn't listen." His hand closed around her wrist, tight but not cruel. "Try me." Their breath mingled in the lamplight. She wrenched free. "Forget it!" and fled. But Lucian wasn't the only one watching her. Alveria's spy master began to sniff out her true origins. Servants whispered of the strange maid with the noble bearing. The steward found an old Leon crest tucked in her belongings, a small silver pin she didn't even remember hiding. Lucian was handed the evidence. He stared at the lion rampant on the pin for a long time. When she entered his office later, unaware, he held it up between two fingers. She froze. His voice was low, controlled. "What is this?" She didn't answer. He stood. "Tell me your name." She stayed silent. He slammed his fist into the desk. "Your name!" He slammed his fist into the desk. "Your name!" Her lips trembled. Finally, she whispered, "Isabella de Leon." The silence in the room was absolute. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "The Duke of Leon," he said slowly, "a woman, pretending to be a man, to hold your duchy." She didn't deny it. He exhaled shakily. "God help me." After that, everything changed. He kept her close, claiming to need her counsel for negotiations. She knew it was partly to watch her, partly because he couldn't bear to let her out of sight. They argued daily, about tactics, about morals, about the price of peace. One night, after a particularly savage exchange over the Empire's demands, he grabbed her by the shoulders. "I hate you," he growled. "You make me question everything." She glared back. "Good. Then you're finally thinking." And he kissed her. It was brutal, desperate. When they broke apart, they were both shaking. He pressed his forehead to hers. "What the hell are we doing?" She swallowed. "Starting a war we can't win." They both laughed, breathless and bitter. Alveria was on edge. The Empire demanded Lucienne finalize. the betrothal to their niece. War hung on a thread. Isabella watched from the shadows of the court. She had regained her memories, her father's dying wishes, her duty to Leon, and now she was trapped in enemy lands, falling for her greatest rival. Her so-called brothers kept pressing her. "Now is the time," Geoffrey urged. "During the wedding feast, kill him and end it." Isabella's stomach twisted. "He's a tyrant," Walter reminded her. "Think of our people." My people? Or his? Meanwhile, Alvaria's princess, Lucian's own sister Eleanor, had gone missing. Rumor whispered that she'd been taken by the Empire's agents. In truth, she had run off with a notorious assassin. Isabella had seen them once, hidden behind a tapestry. The assassin with his blindfold, his hand cupping Eleanor's bloodied side as he whispered frantic apologies. "You're dying. Let me save you." "No. I chose this." Eleanor had risked everything to help the man who once tried to kill her brother. When Isabella told Lucian, he refused to believe it. "My sister would never betray Alvaria." Isabella slammed her fist into the map table. "She didn't betray you. She loves him, you stubborn bastard." Lucian's face twisted in pain. The wedding feast arrived. Torches burned bright, minstrels played triumphal songs, and Empire envoys filled the grand hall. Isabella wore servant's livery, a dagger strapped under her skirts. She found Lucian alone on the balcony. He turned at her approach, regal in black and crimson, eyes cold. "Come to kill me?" She didn't answer. She just met his gaze. He spread his arms mockingly. "Well, do it. End the war. Be the hero Leon needs." Her fingers trembled on the dagger's hilt. Memories crashed over her, his smile when she outwitted him in council, the fury in his eyes when she challenged him, the bruising press of his mouth on hers. She let the blade drop. "I can't." Lucian let out a shuddering breath. He stepped forward and cupped her face. "You are my enemy," he whispered hoarsely. "And I love you." She choked a laugh. "Idiot! You're making this impossible." He kissed her, slow and raw, but the Empire's envoy burst in. "Duke Lucien, the Empire demands your answer." Lucien broke away, breathing hard. He glanced at Isabella. She nodded. He straightened his coat. "Very well." He turned back to the envoy, voice clear. "Tell your emperor, Alvaria will not kneel. Not now, not ever." Gasps rippled through the hall. Isabella smiled through tears. War was inevitable now. She pulled him back for one last kiss. "I'll see you on the battlefield, Your Grace." He touched her cheek. "Don't you dare hold back." And she slipped away into the night. The duchy teetered on the edge of civil war. Whispers spread through Leon's ancient halls that the Duke was no true man. That Isabella, masquerading as Isaac all these years, was about to be exposed. Nobles who had once bent the knee were furious. "She lied to us for 20 years, they thundered in council. "How can we serve a woman?" Isabella faced them with chin high, though her eyes burned with grief. "You are Leon's lords and knights," she told them coldly. "Your duty is to your people, not your pride." But it fell on deaf ears. Many demanded she abdicate. Some openly pledged to back her ambitious general, Lord Kendrick, who waited like a vulture to seize the throne. Even worse was the poison. The Empire's princess, Ilara, betrothed to Alvaria's duke in a political bargain, was furious at losing her leverage once Lucien chose Isabella. She arranged for a lethal needle to be hidden in the wedding gown intended for Isabella. But tragedy struck when Lady Giselle, Isabella's longtime companion and the only one who truly knew her secret, tried on the gown. By the time Isabella found her, Giselle was dead, eyes wide in horror, the tiny needle still lodged in her palm. Isabella's scream shook the castle. The hall fell into chaos, servants wailed, knights drew steel in suspicion. Lucien arrived in time to catch Isabella as she collapsed over her friend's body. He held her as she sobbed, rage and sorrow twisting his face. "Who did this?" he demanded. Isabella's voice was hoarse. "Ilara, I know it." Lucian's eyes went murderously cold. "Then she will pay." The duchy fell into mourning. Giselle's death shattered what remained of Isabella's fragile support. The nobles demanded an inquiry, though many whispered it was Isabella herself who had arranged the poisoned gown to rid herself of an inconvenient bride. Even her allies faltered. Lord Kendrick used the outrage to rally knights to his banner. She lied to us about her sex, he told them in the torch-lit Great Hall. She is unfit to rule. She murders those who discover the truth. Isabella stood at the dais, pale but unbowed. I did not kill her, she said, voice ringing. But I will not grovel to prove my innocence. I am the rightful sovereign of Leon. The lords roared in anger. Then abdicate, Kendrick sneered, or we'll take your crown by force. Isabella returned to her chambers and wept. Lucien found her there, staring blankly at the hearth. He sat beside her without a word. At last she spoke. She trusted me. She died because of me. Lucien's jaw clenched. The Empire will pay for that. She shook her head. This isn't the Empire's fault alone. My people hate me for being a woman. They want me gone. Lucien seized her shoulders. Let them hate you. Make them obey. Isabella gave a bitter laugh. They'd rather see me dead. The next day, Kendrick declared open rebellion. His banners flew above the southern walls. The sound of drums beat the call to arms. Isabella summoned her council. Many refused to come. Lucien alone sat with her at the long table. She stared at the empty chairs and exhaled shakily. I am losing everything. Lucien's eyes met hers, dark and steady. Not everything. He laid a hand over hers. And she squeezed back. Civil war broke out in Leon. Kendrick's forces stormed southern fortresses. Villages burned in his name. Rumors spread of the false duke, a woman unfit to wear the sword or the crown. Isabella donned armor herself, refusing to hide. Lucien fought at her side, his Alverian knights clashing with Leon's own rebels in brutal skirmishes. As the siege of Leon's capital loomed, Kendrick offered terms. Abdicate publicly and spare your people, his messenger proclaimed in the throne room. Isabella sat on the carved oak throne, gauntleted fingers drumming. Spare them? She asked softly. Or hand them to you? The envoy smirked. Better a man they can trust than a lying witch. Lucien stepped forward, voice like ice. One more insult and I'll send your tongue back in a box. The envoy fled. Isabella slumped when the door shut. They'll never accept me. Lucien knelt before her. Then make them fear you. She shivered. That's not ruling. That's tyranny. He smiled grimly. Sometimes there's no difference. Meanwhile, Kendrick's agents sowed terror in the city. Poisonings, sabotage, assassins lurking in the night. One night, Isabella found the corpse of a loyal captain in her own bedchamber, throat slit, blood pooling on her maps. She stood in the candlelight, shaking. Lucien arrived just in time to wrench the dagger from her frozen hand. They're trying to break you, he growled. It's working, she whispered. In secret council, Lucien laid out a plan. We fake your death, he said bluntly. We give Kendrick your body in a sealed coffin. His army will disperse, thinking, it's over. Then we strike. Isabella stared at him. My people will think I'm dead. Lucien's jaw tightened. Better they mourn you than hate you. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were hard as flint. Do it. The plan was simple, dangerous, necessary. Lucien gathered loyalists in the dead of night. They prepared a heavy coffin lined with lead and velvet. Isabella lay inside, breath shallow, dressed in her ducal finery. The scent of blood, goat's blood, carefully poured, clung to the silk. Outside, soldiers wailed and moaned, faking grief to complete the illusion. Kendrick's spies watched from shadows. Lucien pressed a kiss to Isabella's brow before closing the lid. Forgive me? She gave the faintest nod. The coffin was paraded through the torchlit streets. Bells tolled, mourners knelt. Kendrick's agents spread the word like wildfire. The false duke is dead! But Kendrick himself was no fool. He sent his hard-eyed captain to inspect the body. At the gates, Lucien refused to unseal the coffin. You dare defile a sovereign's body? He thundered. Show respect for the dead! The captain hesitated. Lucien's hand hovered over his sword. The captain finally spat and turned away. Fine. Take your corpse to the crypt. In the crypt below Leon Cathedral, Isabella clawed open the coffin from within. Her fingers bled as she shoved aside the lid. Lucien was there immediately, hauling her out, cradling her as she gasped for air. You're safe, he murmured. It worked. Isabella sagged against him, trembling with exhaustion. Now what? She rasped. Lucien's gaze was merciless. Now you vanish. You let them fight over your grave, and when they're weak, you come back. Isabella pressed her forehead to his chest. Promise you won't leave me? He held her tighter. Never. But Kendrick was no fool. When news of Isabella's death spread, he didn't rejoice. He brooded in his war tent, eyes narrowed over maps, fingers drumming. "Show me the body," he finally growled to his captain. The man stammered. "My lord, Lucian sealed the coffin. The clergy interred it with full rites." Kendrick slammed a fist on the table. "Dig it up!" Beneath Leon Cathedral, Isabella and Lucien worked in feverish haste. Loyal retainers brought a fresh corpse, unclaimed from the gallows, its features battered. Isabella helped smear her own signet ring with blood and press it onto the corpse's hand. She fought back nausea. Lucien cupped her cheek. "We're almost free." She nodded once, jaw tight. They closed the coffin again, sealing the decoy body inside. They escaped through ancient crypt tunnels, lit by guttering torches. The passages stank of damp earth and old bones. Isabella stumbled. Lucien caught her. "Steady," he breathed. "We can't stop." Behind them, faint shouts echoed. Kendrick's men realizing the ruse too late. They emerged at dawn miles beyond the city walls, cloaked, filthy, alive. Isabella stood on a wind-swept hill, staring back at Leon, her city, her birthright. She wiped dirt from her face, leaving streaks of blood and tears. "I'll be back," she whispered. Lucien squeezed her hand. "And when you are, they'll kneel." Exile was a bitter teacher. Isabella and Lucien roamed borderlands in hiding. They sheltered with old allies, bribed mercenaries, and slept in ruined watchtowers. Rumors reached them daily. Kendrick crowned himself Duke of Leon, parading before the nobles. He claimed Isabella had confessed her deceit on her deathbed, calling herself a fraud. Worse still, the Empire's emissary, Princess Alara, sent letters recognizing Kendrick's claim in exchange for his loyalty. Isabella read the stolen missives by firelight, trembling with rage. "She's bought my throne for the price of her pride," she spat. Lucien took the letters and fed them to the flames. "Then we buy it back with blood." Months passed. Loyalists within Leon waited, sending coded messages, supplies, news of Kendrick's cruelty. He bled the duchy dry with new taxes to fund mercenaries, tortured suspected traitors, executed anyone speaking Isabella's name. The city groaned under tyranny. At last, in secret council around a smoky hearth, Isabella clenched her fist over a map. "We strike at dawn. We cut the head from the snake." Lucien met her eyes, dark and calm. "We'll take your city back." Isabella smiled without warmth. "No, we'll burn out the rot and make it new." The night of the assault came black and cold. Isabella's small loyalist force gathered beneath moonless skies. She wore battered armor, Leon's silver sigil half-polished, half-scarred. A black cloak billowed behind her in the wind. Lucien stood at her side, sword drawn. He caught her eye. "No mercy?" Isabella's voice was like flint striking steel. "None." They infiltrated the city through old tunnels. Kendrick's mercenaries were drunk, celebrating their final victory after executing dozens of suspected rebels that morning. Isabella moved like a ghost through her own streets. At the Citadel gate, she raised her hand. Torches flared along the walls, the signal. Loyal guards turned on Kendrick's men in the courtyard, cutting them down before they could shout. She strode through the gore-slick flagstones, eyes ablaze. "This is Leon," she roared. "It will not bow to usurpers." Inside the throne room, Kendrick waited. He wore Leon's crown. Blood stained his surcoat. His eyes were wild. "You're dead," he hissed when he saw her. "I buried you." Isabella's lip curled. "You buried a thief in my clothes." Kendrick lunged. Steel rang on marble. Lucien blocked his first slash, driving Kendrick back. Isabella advanced, blade steady. "Kneel," she ordered. Kendrick spat blood. "I'd sooner die." "That can be arranged." They clashed. Kendrick was strong but furious, sloppy. Isabella ducked a killing blow and rammed her sword into his ribs. He fell, gasping. She twisted the blade. "Leon bows to no tyrant," she whispered. When she withdrew her sword, he slumped, lifeless, to the floor. Blood cooled on the marble floors. Kendrick's corpse lay sprawled in a spreading pool. Isabella turned slowly, breath ragged. The hall was filled with her nobles, those who had conspired, those who had hesitated, those who had simply been too afraid. Many knelt immediately, heads bowed, but others stayed standing, faces pale and defiant. Lord Ravencroft, the oldest of them, sneered. "You dare sit that throne after deceiving us all these years?" Isabella's jaw tightened. She wiped blood from her blade, letting the metal sing as she sheathed it. She walked to the dais. "I dared, yes. And you know why? Because my father chose me." Murmurs. She slammed her hand on the arm of the throne. He knew this realm needed an heir with brains, with steel, not just a cock between his legs. Ravencroft scowled. "You're a woman." Isabella's eyes blazed. "I am the Duke of Leon. I bled for these lands. I starved beside my soldiers. I buried my friends. What have you done, my lord? Written letters?" The hall went silent. She stepped down. "If you want me gone, draw steel. Let's see who Leon truly follows." None moved. Isabella's voice softened, hoarse with fury and grief. "I know you hate me. I know you think I lied. But I would do it all again if it meant saving Leon." She drew a dagger and held it out, hilt first. If you think I'm unworthy, then kill me now. Be rid of me. Or kneel, and help me rebuild." One by one, the nobles dropped to their knees. Silence ruled the throne room. Kneeling nobles trembled before her. Isabella let the dagger drop, the clatter echoing like thunder. She climbed the steps and sat on the ducal throne. "Rise," she commanded. "Leon needs workers more than corpses." They stood slowly, uncertain. Isabella's voice was iron. "Kendrick is dead. The Empire will demand explanation. Taxes must be rebuilt. Farms must be replanted. And every coward who fled must be welcomed home if they swear loyalty." Lord Ravencroft swallowed hard. "And you? Will you remain?" Isabella's gaze swept them. "I was born for this. I will die for this." When the hall cleared, Lucien remained behind. He looked exhausted, blood on his surcoat, hair damp with sweat. She slumped against the throne's arm, eyes closing. He knelt beside her. "It's done." She didn't speak. He touched her cheek. "Isabella, open your eyes." She forced them open, meeting his stare. His voice was low, unsteady. "Do you still want this? This throne? This life?" Her answer was a ragged whisper. "If I leave, Leon burns. If I stay, I burn." He took her hand. "Then let me burn with you." She let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob, and she fell into his arms. Outside, the bells tolled, not for death, but for victory. The people of Leon gathered in the square. When Isabella stepped onto the balcony in battered armor, her hair loose, the crowd fell silent. She didn't promise them glory. She didn't promise them peace. She only promised she would fight for them until her last breath. And they cheered her name.